donuts from the Friends of Silverbrook, but I'm going to highlight a couple more people in this section, but I'm going to wait till everybody's walking. And if you have questions afterwards too, I'm happy to answer them. Yeah, we're going to gather up here. I'm going to highlight my other Abbey people, and then you can take a look in the Abbey. There's refreshments from Friends of Silverbrook. If you have questions, we're happy to try to answer them, etc. So, I said I was waiting. No. Yeah. Give everybody a chance. Thank you. You did a great job. Okay. All right. As we kind of gather over, we're just going to say, again, there's so many people interred in the mausoleum that many of those big names in Niles that we talked about here. So we're going to just highlight a couple more here and wrap up the tour. But I'm glad that the weather has been nice so far. It didn't rain on us like last year. I appreciate that. I know it's coming though, but yeah. One of the other families whose name you may see when you go in the mausoleum, they're not part of those big family sections, but there are some members of the Troost family in Niles. And one of them is Peter Troost. He was born in 1871 in Grand Rapids. He actually moved to like the Big Rapids area, and he started working in a furniture factory in a career that really would take him the rest of his life. He worked at a number of furniture companies, and then in the early 1900s, he moved to Niles with his brother, Joseph, and they started Troost Brothers Furniture. Haley has that iconic picture of Troost Brothers next to Montgomery Ward's in downtown Niles from the 1950s. Many people may remember Troost Brothers Furniture. The business actually started in Niles. They eventually expanded. In the early 20s, they put a shop in St. Joe and another one in 26 in Benton Harbor. That's how I knew about Troost, was because I'm from that area. I didn't realize the company started in Niles, but it's pretty awesome. He was also a mayor of Niles at one time. He was president of the Board of Public Works as well. He was president of the Chamber of Commerce. He was part of the Dry Cold Refrigerator Company and a director at the Niles City Bank. And again, he was mayor of Niles as well. He, very sadly, in 1922, he died of influenza. He was not even 50 yet. He was married to Hulda Du Bois, and they're both interred here at the mausoleum. There are other members of the family that are also in the cemetery, but not here as well. But that's one of the businesses you may mention. The other two big families here that I'd like to talk about are the Harrahs and the Smiths, and you'll see those names in the cemetery here. So the Harrahs, William and Marie Harrah. William Harrah was born in 1871. He moved to Niles in the early 1900s to manage the National Wire Cloth Company. It kept expanding. In 1906, he took charge of a small department within the business that specifically produced lightning rods from round cables of, quote, pure standard wire, they said. It was a very successful department. It incorporated as a new business a year later. It was called National Cable and Manufacturing Company. Harrah was the president. In 1913, they bought a company from Kalamazoo called Cook Standard Tool, and the company was renamed National Standard. Obviously, long history in Niles. They produced a variety of wire products. By 1934, virtually 95% of the tire manufacturers throughout the world were using National Standard material out of this Niles company here. He died in 1959. If you know where Hal Britter's funeral home is on Main Street in Niles, that was their city house, quote. Yeah, that was there. It's still standing today. He was married to Marie. Her last name was Even, and she was born in Illinois in 1874. They married in 1894. came to Niles, of course, in the early 1900s as well. She's a really cool woman. She was involved in a number of women's clubs in the community. And during World War I, she was head of the local Red Cross operations as well. So she kind of took that on. They, for a time, actually met in the Chapin mansion. The Chapin family allowed the Red Cross to use part of the home for Red Cross operations. So they had meetings there. They did trainings there. They would do things like knit packages and knit and compile packages to send overseas during the war. So she was involved with that. During the 1918 influenza epidemic as well, she established and staffed an emergency hospital in the Presbyterian Church in Niles, because at that time, Niles didn't have a public hospital yet, and so they needed space. They needed more space because so many people were sick. And so she helped staff it at the Presbyterian Church. So she died in 1963. They had a son. You'll see him interred in there. His name was Clayton, but everyone called him Duke, from what I understand. Harrah, he was born in 1900, grew up in Niles, of course. He was an aeronautical engineer, and in 1941, he founded Duke Harrah, Inc. They made aircraft engine accessories. He lived for a time on Harrah Road in Niles, if anyone is familiar with that area. He died in 1969. The other big name in there is Carmi Smith. Carmi Smith was born in 1862, but he was a guy that was involved in a number of businesses and industries in Niles. He was very influential in the community. He was the state legislature in the late 1800s and mayor of Niles as well, of course, another trend. He was postmaster too, and from what I understand, postmaster was a very popular person in the community usually, so that tells you something. He actually was in a number of business ventures, starting off with some paper companies. He was involved in some of those dairies in Niles. He was the first president of Niles Creamery in the early 1900s. In 1914, him and his brother Ben started the Michigan Wire Good Company. He was involved in real estate in the community as well. And he started developing, selling real estate developments too. He was a founder of the Niles Hotel Company, which was the group that sold subscriptions to build the Four Flags Hotel in Niles in the 20s. He was also part of the Niles Businessmen's Association, and their job was to promote industry and bring people to the community of Niles. He is credited with bringing Francis Plim and Connier here. Apparently, Francis Plim met him, and he convinced him to move the Connier Company from Kansas City to Niles, too. So, he was part of the Berrien County Red Cross as well. Very influential name, too. He died in 1939. Too, and he's in the mausoleum. His wife was Mary Stafford Smith, too. Another name you'll see in there are the Wood family as well, and the Woods were also another very involved family in the community at this time, and there were like 3 generations of Woods that were mayor of Niles, too. So some of them, so one of them was, there's an interesting, let me find my Wood stuff, make sure I get the years right on them. So J. Walter Wood was born in 1878. He was born in Sumnerville, actually, but he was really a resident of Niles. He went to engineering school at U of M, and shortly after, he founded the Niles Steel Tank Company. Yes, he was director of the State Bank, part of the Berrien County Road Commission. He was on the Niles Board of Education for 25 years. He was elected mayor in 1916. Sadly, he was elected by the city council after the death of his father, who was mayor at the time, Lucian Wood. He also had been serving on some city boards and stuff before that time. His son, Jerome, also served as mayor, too. So you have 3 generations of mayors right there. And you'll see that Wood name in the mausoleum, too. So this is kind of the end of the tour. I will encourage everyone, if you want to take another look in the mausoleum, if you have any questions about specific people, we can answer them to the best of our abilities. The Friends of Silverbrook operate a wonderful website, friendsofsilverbrook.org, and they have a listing of all the graves at Silverbrook, and a lot of them, they have the obits from the papers digitized on there so you can access them. So if you want to know about a specific person we didn't talk about, you can ask us and we can help you either find it on the website or we can take your information and help you research that as well. The Friends of Silverbrook have also provided some cider and donuts for people to enjoy. The Niles History Center is open today. The museum's going to open at noon, and they'll have a guided Chapin Mansion tour at 1. So if you want more information on that, you can let us know. But thank you all for coming out to the tour, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you so much.